Hello, welcome to our third webinar. This is a special webinar series by Ludwig Marketing and Sales and Marketplace Seller Courses. Today we're going to be talking about Vendor Central versus Seller Central, pros, cons, benefits, drawbacks, the whole nine, and really focusing on what's going to fit your brand best. There's no one size or one platform's perfect for any individual seller, but we're going to do our best to give you the overview. One disclaimer that I do have that's really important is most of our work is with Seller Central, and so the experience with Vendor Central is a little more limited. We do have some experience with that as well, but I think that the key points are going to be really important for every seller, no matter which platform you're selling on, and definitely help to cut through some of the confusion or questions that a lot of people have. So thank you guys for joining us, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
And so a few housekeeping issues here. We're going to record the webinar for today. We want to try to make sure that you're always armed with as much information as you have regarding issues regarding Amazon, which is our hope and our commitment to you guys. So we'll record it, and we will also send you an email with the actual presentation as well. So don't worry about taking copious notes. Today, it'll be there for you. We'll send a PDF straight away after the webinar is over. So welcome everybody. So I'm Lou Nicolaitis. I'm with Ludwig Marketing and Sales, and my background is in the consumer packaged goods area. Done a lot of work, and it's migrated from traditional advertising and PR that I started in my early career. Really, it's migrated as the years have gone on, and the internet and proliferation of e-commerce more towards like in the digital space. And one of the things that I love very much are specialty food brands. I've worked in chocolates, pet food, lots of different confection area, and so forth. And so we have a passion for food and for specialty brands and so forth. So we provide lots of e-commerce solutions at Ludwig Marketing and Sales, and have had the pleasure of working with Shannon on dozens of stores where we've cut our teeth a lot on and made a lot of mistakes, as well as had a lot of great positive results from stores that we had built for our clients. Shannon?
Yeah, so my name is Shannon, for those of you who haven't met me yet. I've worked with Amazon sellers for the last 6 years. Really got started in it by accident. I had a client of mine that needed some Amazon work done. I have been selling a product myself, and through that experience just learned so much. And then over the last 3 years, we put together Marketplace Seller Courses to really, which really for me doubled and tripled my knowledge of Amazon, and then also gave us a really great resource, which we'll circle back to and talk to you about at the end. But my background is in web design, e-commerce, and SEO, and all those things play a huge role in optimizing your Amazon storefront. So we take all that background and experience, and we pool our collective talents together, both the marketing side, the copywriting side, graphic design, SEO, and it's a really incredible team that we have to be able to optimize storefronts and help people launch their products or fix complicated seller issues, which we run into quite a bit. So in addition, I want to mention that if you have any questions, we do have a chat bar. So you can go ahead and click the chat Q&A, and we'll get some of those questions at the end and be able to answer any questions, hopefully now, if not following up after the webinar. So
today what we're going to do is try to hit points that as Shannon and I were putting together this webinar, that really are germane to both of the platforms. We did a poll, we did a question, a questionnaire, and asked you for most of the people that are on here, which platform they're on, and the majority of them are in Seller Central. And it's very interesting the kind of questions that we've gotten from people, from you guys, about issues that relate to both platforms, Seller Central versus Vendor Central. And so for today, we're going to talk a little bit about positioning, what that means, both company and brand, actually selling wholesale versus retail in the models that both platforms support. Shannon will dive a little bit more into optimizing listings, and we can look at the differences there as well as like pricing, profit, and sort of some of the financial issues there. And then some of the other areas are fulfillment and inventory, a little bit on marketing promotions, and then also sort of how the customer interaction and communications happen on these platforms. So there's a lot of information that we want to share. And basically, for your positioning, Vendor Central, first of all, Vendor Central is an invite-only type of thing. What happens in a lot of cases is that Amazon will see successful sellers who have started selling with their pro accounts on Seller Central and then invite them to become Vendor Central. And I think one of the key points that I want to make is really to understand that it's opening up new channels for potential purchases and sales overall, but also with Vendor Central comes a different type of interaction that you're having with the customer. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, how you want to be interacting, because basically your products now, as you know, or if you don't know, you can tell a company that is on Vendor Central, where at the top of the page on the Amazon page, it'll say ships and sold from Amazon. And sometimes what this has like almost a little bit of a positive and negative. So on the positive side, you get the assurity that Amazon, the reliability that Amazon is sort of sponsoring this product as well. However, you are also losing a little bit of interactivity as it comes to being able to work with the direct to the consumer directly. So on Vendor Central, there you refer to as a first-party seller. And basically the idea with Vendor Central is that it's going to be geared towards more of a distributor manufacturer business model. When I say manufacturer, the questions are, and that you would want to really look at is, do you want to sell to other retailers? Do you want to keep the interaction to just consumers? So that's why we put the bullet point of, for companies that are not necessarily interested in direct-to-consumer sales. And so these are, again, the question of how you want to be positioning both company and brand. And also, in the last point here on leveraging Amazon's marketing resources for brand exposure. So basically, we're talking about your different promotional opportunities that are available on Vendor Central versus Seller Central.
Yeah, there's just like a special brand store page you can build on Vendor Central that gives you.
On Seller Central, these are referred to as third-party sellers. And really, it's the area that we enjoy working with because there's a lot more control that you do have over the entire aspect of delighting a customer, for gaining product reviews, fulfillment, and you can also do this via both Prime as well as merchant fulfilled. So there's a little bit of control that way as well. But I look at it always, and it seems like we get this question a lot, is that how is the integrity of your brand being positioned on Amazon? Do you want to make sure that the brand experience is at the level that you want to, so that, say, you're talking about on a pricing point of view, are there pricing wars going on? Are people undercutting you? Or are you continuing to keep the integrity for your brand story there? So there's a lot of issues that will go into all of that. And Shannon's going to dive a little bit into each one of them as we break down the webinar for today. But really what it really comes down to is that there is a level of control here on Seller Central that is unique to that platform versus Vendor Central.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just kind of the basic model that Lou referenced. Again, Vendor Central is a wholesale platform. Your company or brand sells directly to Amazon. they're going to fulfill it with their warehouses, which is FBA, and it sells it under its own brand name to customers. So pretty straightforward. Seller Central, again, your company or brand is selling through the Amazon platform, not to Amazon. You also do have the option to fulfill via Amazon's warehouses. So even if you're not a Vendor Central, you can still submit your products, send them into FBA warehouses. You can get the Prime status. That will get shipped to customers, or you can do what's called Merchant Fulfill, which is that second option that you see where you are actually shipping the product directly to the customer. So the whole Prime eligibility is available both for Vendor Central as well as for Seller Central. In terms of optimizing your listings on Vendor Central, there's quite a lot that's the same. The ability, say for example, to use keyword research in your title, to write out the product features and descriptions. There is what's called A+ content, and that's specific to Vendor Central. And there is a charge for that. It's fairly expensive, but it differs based on sellers or some of the terms, or basically where it is in the process. And that does allow both additional photos and content in the description below the fold, but it also allows you typically to add videos above the fold, basically at the end of your photo. So if you have 4 photos or 5 photos, that video actually could be at the top. You do have a limited number of search terms, so that's about 60 characters, whereas with Seller Central, you've got about 250 or more. And one of the things to note is that it does require revisions for content. So there's an approval process that you can't just make the changes yourself. Initially, when you submit it, it will go through the process of getting approved. But then any changes that you want to make, you're not making those changes. You're basically opening tickets and having Amazon Vendor Central reps make those changes for you. And there's some cases where maybe a change that you request doesn't get approved. Typically it does, as long as it's in line with their policy. And then there's a detail page control, which I'll break down as best as I can, but there's essentially 3 tiers. And so tier 1 is in Seller Central. If you have multiple sellers selling on the same listing, that is the same detail page, everybody, if they have their own titles, their own product features, their own photos and description, Amazon can pull from all of those, basically looking at it as multiple contributions to create the most optimal detail page. And there's a lot of detail that I won't go into in terms of how that works, but basically, just because you're the brand owner doesn't necessarily mean that your contribution will be used instead of somebody else's. Everybody's sort of looked at as equal, based on their seller experience. However, if you're able to get brand registry as the brand owner, that allows you to control the detail page, meaning if I submit an optimized title, product features, maybe a new photo or set of photos that I have, or a new description, that will override everybody else's contribution, and I can control the detail page as the brand owner. That's really, really important, obviously, for brands selling on Amazon. For Vendor Central, if there's a Vendor Central contribution to the same detail page, Vendor Central will actually override brand registry. And we'll get into the challenge of this a little bit later, but what's important to note is that you have these 3 different levels of hierarchy, and just because you have brand registry does not mean that you can control the detail page. So specifically, people moving from Vendor Central to Seller Central, there's a little bit of challenge there, which we'll touch base on a little more later. Lou, do you want to talk about the Seller Central?
Yeah, Amazon has just recently created a beautiful branding format called enhanced brand content. Maybe you're familiar with that. It was launched, I believe, Shannon, like around January of this year, which allows brands to really do more of a deep dive and move beyond the product description content that is the text-based content that you see as you scroll down, the listing page. So now it's template driven. You can basically, you can only allow yourself to do that through brand registry. You must be on brand registry to be able to take advantage of enhanced brand content. And enhanced brand content represents a new step forward that basically rivals the A+ seller pages that Vendor Central used. So now you can move beyond using text and graphics to tell your brand stories, and it's free. But usually with Amazon's, when they're in their ways that they want to grow, we don't know whether or not it will continue to be a free service, but definitely, this is something that you want to take advantage of that moves way beyond. It does create higher conversions. They're showing a 8 to 15% increase in conversion rate, winning the buy box as well as page conversions. So we are, we're seeing a lot of good things about enhanced brand content. And in our scopes of work that we offer to, our clients, we give them the choice of doing enhanced brand content versus regular content. So also they're claiming 30% improvement in social interactions for listings, products that do have enhanced brand content versus those that don't. So what's happening is that Amazon is actually indexing companies that have enhanced brand content on their product pages and ranking those first. And so basically, in terms of optimizing your listings, this is a huge area. Seller Central is going to give you much more control than given product listing pages. And with full SEO search, which is in the listings, we talked a lot about that on one of our last webinars, as well as more flexibility really in being able to position, your brand and your company the right way.
Yeah. And the benefit to Seller Central is if you have brand registry and you make an update, that update is going to reflect typically in 15 minutes to 24 hours. So you don't have to wait. It's not a submission and approval process. You control the detail page, and as long as it's in line with the Amazon policy, that's going to go through. So definitely an ability to do that there. A lot more flexibility in terms of your control of your detail pages. So let's go to some of the nitty-gritty. And we're going to look at some really key aspects of Seller Central versus Vendor Central. And again, these are just important points, but while those are important, I do want to mention that the idea is at some point, like any relationship, whether it's a wholesale relationship or what have you, that there are basically situations that it's a make it or break it. And so the key is to keep an eye out for things where you go, yeah, that's going to work, or actually, no, that's a deal breaker for me. And that's going to be really helpful in making your decision about which platform to sell on, as well as which one's going to be right for you to stay at for the time being if you're already selling the one that you feel is right for you. So the first point is just selling fees. If you're doing Vendor Central, it's looked at as a typical wholesale, for example, at 50% MSRP. And so basically they're going to send you POs, and then you fulfill those POs and send them into their warehouses. With Seller Central, it's very, very different. Your typical referral fee is 15%, and that's basically for your ability to use the platform. So you can sell directly through Amazon platform, merchant fulfilled, and basically typically just pay that 15% referral fee. There's a $39, Seller Central professional monthly fee that you have to pay. There can be cost of advertising fees. But the only other fee in addition to that would be if you use FBA warehouses and in order to get the Prime eligibility, which is highly encouraged because of the increase in sales that you'll see for that. So there are situations where you can see that the final price after all of your shipping costs into FBA, after the pick and pack fees, your pricing could wind up being about the same. But to start at the base, you're looking at about 50%, wholesale versus a 15% referral fee if you're doing merchant fulfilled. So as far as profit, again, you're able to negotiate some margins with Amazon, but you're also dealing with much slimmer profit margins because of that wholesale model. For Seller Central, the beauty of it is that you get to set the price that you want. That can mean in some senses, in some cases that you price yourself out of the market, or that you have to more closely monitor your price. But the benefit is if your product, it's your inventory, and you retain control, and you can change the price at any time. You don't have to worry about Amazon doing that. One thing that I do want to mention now, and I'll recap this at the end, but while Amazon does have a place for you to input your MAP, your minimum advertised pricing through Vendor Central platform, that does not mean that they're going to entirely respect that or abide by that. They use pricing algorithms that if there's other sellers selling that product and they go below them, their algorithm is likely going to reprice below that. And that's important for a couple reasons, but mainly because Amazon is such a prominent platform and people look to Amazon to see what those prices are set at. So something to consider, and again, we'll follow up with that on one of the later slides. Getting paid, the benefit for Vendor Central, obviously, payment based on purchase orders, and so they're going to order large quantities of products at the time. That can be a really good benefit. I know companies that use Vendor Central for this, and it works well for them because of their model. On the downside, you're looking at a 60 to 90-day net payment, and that can be challenging for cash flow based on your current capital reserves and cash flow. So with Seller Central, there's actually a couple options, but one of them is you're typically going to receive payment every 2 weeks. So whatever sales you've accumulated in that period, it minuses or deducts any fees for your advertising. It also deducts any fees for FBA fulfillment. But beyond that, it's basically just going to pay out to your bank account every 2 weeks, the remainder. The other thing that new Seller Central accounts are rolling out with is a Pay Me Now button. And I have a couple clients that have this option, but it hasn't been rolled out. But basically, it allows you to short circuit that 2-week waiting period and basically allow you to get paid more quickly. The last note on this is there are times when if you've had any seller account health issues where you had a high rate of returns, you had trouble getting products out on time, that sort of thing, Amazon can withhold a percentage of your funds to make sure that any potential returns or negative complaints or feedback are actually able to be dealt with out of that. So it's important to note that your seller account health actually plays into your ability to get fully paid on a timely basis. So
one important thing I really want everybody to kind of make sure they kind of get is the fact that, again, because Vendor Central is an invite-only type of thing, they're tracking sales. So the real considerations as a brand, as a growing brand for you guys, is that, although Vendor Central can expand, the potential sales in a lot of ways, again, you need to look at your cash flow situation to see if that expansion is worth sacrificing getting paid and your cash flow, your situation. So it may be, again, you can think about it in terms of the brand, from a brand point of view. Yes, it's wider reach. You're reaching a lot more people. Amazon is, ships and sold from Amazon. So they're getting you introduced to more places, which may be very compelling. But then on the opposite side of that, is that going to be, and I'll leave this question with you to sort of think about, is that a sustainable model that is going to work? Because once you open the floodgates, and lose some of the control that you may have over pricing and different things like that, is that worth it for, again, I talk about the integrity of your brand. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the next thing is inventory. On the Vendor Central side, once they purchase it, they're in charge of the inventory. It basically becomes their inventory, and they're able to do with it what they want, essentially, right of first purchase. There's no low inventory notices, and it's really up to them to choose when to order more inventory, which inventory to order, and how much of it. With Seller Central, on the other hand, you have complete control over your inventory. You can say, I've got 150,000 of these in stock ready to be fulfilled via merchant, or I want to send in 1,000 to FBA, and you can do that. With FBA, they do have some storage limits. So you've got your regular storage limits, and then you have oversized storage limits. So if you have products that are greater, I think, than 18 inches is their minimum or max for normal size products. You do have caps on that, but once you're able to show that you can sell through those, you can request that your inventory caps be increased. And actually, one of the brands I work with very closely, we've done that 3 or 4 times over the last 2 or 3 months, and we basically had it doubled and then tripled and then quadrupled in terms of our space that we have available in terms of the inventory. So really, really important to keep that in mind. It does require much, much more attention to detail and the responsibility on you and your team to make sure that orders get fulfilled, to make sure that customer service is handled, to make sure that the pricing is correct and everything's optimized and up to date, and that everything's being handled to maintain your seller account health. That is much more important. And so you can also look at the decision in terms of flexibility. If you're a larger operation, if you have capacity for that, or if you're a smaller operation and you don't, either way, it's going to be deciding what's best for your brand. But the inventory, even if you send it into FBA, it's still your inventory through Seller Central. And you can recall that inventory at any time. There's a fee, obviously, you have to pay return shipping charges plus an additional fee, but it's not bad. I've had customers and clients that have had to do that for various reasons. And the benefit is you control the inventory and it's yours until it's sold and shipped to the customer. For marketing, as we mentioned, Vendor Central has what are called A+ content, and that's things like you have premium advertising, there's videos available, they've got special coupon pages that are available, but a lot of this has extra cost to it. In fact, all of it has a lot of extra cost to it. And again, everything has to go through their approval process. So you're submitting requests and Amazon's approving it. With Seller Central, you've got a ton of opportunity both to do promotions, to submit lightning deals, to be able to do advertising campaigns, and that much, much more closely controls your ability to expand your reach. For example, if you've got a product and it's got a wide variety and diversity that you can use it for, Vendor Central, Amazon, they themselves may not go after all those keywords and search terms. But with Seller Central, if you have that campaign and you're running it, you can add all the manual campaigns that you want, all the search terms. As long as you pay for it, you have the ability to go after it. And obviously, you're going to stick with what's converting. But the ability to market directly to customers is really a huge opportunity. You do have some limitation in terms of templates and advertising opportunities because you don't have access to everything that Vendor Central has. But again, there really are plenty of opportunities that most sellers have through Seller Central, through promotions, like I said, through Amazon campaigns, and then through things like lightning deals. This is a big one. I feel, and I think Lou and I are both very passionate about this, we love brands that really care about their customers. And it's not to say that if you sell Vendor Central wholesale that you don't in any way, shape, or form, but we love the ability to get those extra touches for a customer and to make it a personalized experience, and to do that through branding. And one of the ways that you can do that is through direct contact with the customers in Seller Central. So in Amazon, Vendor Central, they're going to handle basically all of the customer interaction, all the shipment, any complaints and stuff. They're basically dealing with that. You don't have the ability to do that directly. I'll mention this later as well, but I do want to point it out that you also don't have the ability to communicate directly with other sellers. So when you have sellers who are selling a product, I know there was a question about that on the sign up, we'll get to it at the end, you have to have another account to do that through. You can't do it through the Vendor Central portal. So you do need a Seller Central account to be able to get in touch with other sellers if they're doing things like violating MAP or selling unauthorized products or that sort of thing. With Seller Central, we basically look at every account as the opportunity to do full branding experience. So everything from the seller bio, the seller logo, the seller storefront, which is a little different, but it's not as robust as Vendor Central, but you do have a storefront. You can create a custom URL to that to display all the products you sell. And specifically, we use Feedback Genius to create a really neat branding experience for all of the customers. So every time a customer orders a product, they get a personalized email to them. It has the company logo. It has a very personalized message to them about the product that they're purchasing, how to use it. If it's a food product, we're giving them recipes of ways they can use it. If it's a consumer product, we're giving them some how-to videos. So really a neat way to engage with customers. And then when they have questions or there's any customer inquiries or even complaints, you get to handle those directly. And we know from Southwest did a study years ago, it's something like 85% of people who have a negative experience, if they come back to you and you handle that well, you can actually win that customer for life. So a negative experience is just an opportunity to be able to win a lifelong customer. And you can't do that in Vendor Central, but you can through Seller Central. because you're able to communicate directly with the customer. The downside of that is it can be difficult to manage under pressure. Working with a company that basically went viral over last Black Friday, we had about 21,000 orders go out in about 3 weeks, and I can tell you that the customer service emails were nonstop, and it seemed like they kept coming. So it was a lot to handle. We had a great team to do it. We all jumped in, and we were able to make that work. But we were able to retain that branding. We were able to retain the control. And that's the kind of thing where if you're just selling, this touches base on the inventory, if you're just selling through Vendor Central and you sell out, you're done. You're just out of stock. If you're doing it through Seller Central and you run out of your FBA inventory, you can switch to merchant fulfilled, and you can still fulfill inventory if you have it in your warehouse. So huge, huge differentiation in terms of the inventory as well. Here's kind of the wrap up, and then we've got a neat little offer for you guys. Seller Central versus Vendor Central. So again, number one, I think is really important, communication with sellers and customers. So again, if you're doing distribution enforcement, one of my clients this morning had some seller from Taiwan jump in on the product listings, and we had to go contact them. That was done through Seller Central. Communication with customers, obviously very important. Enforcing MAP, absolutely huge. And with Vendor Central, you are not guaranteed that Amazon will abide by your MAP pricing, even if it's in some sort of clause or agreement. Amazon's goal is not to provide ultimate deference to manufacturers and retailers for MAP. Their goal is to get the customers the best, lowest price possible. So you have to think it's not bad, it's just that's their motive, to be the most customer-concentric company in the world. And one of the ways they believe in doing that is by getting the product to customers quickly and at the lowest price available. So just have to understand that that's their bent on it, that's their angle, and that's what they're going to do, that they'll go below MAP without even questioning it. And we know quite a bit of people who have pulled back from Vendor Central because of that. Again, we mentioned inventory control and FBA. So with Seller Central, you really have control of your inventory. It's your inventory, even if you use Fulfillment by Amazon warehouses to be Prime eligible. So huge benefit there for Seller Central. And then as far as content and video opportunities, once enhanced brand content rolled out, that became a huge opportunity to be able to create A-plus seller-like content that would really be able to increase the conversion rates in the same way that Vendor Central sellers were doing it, but you could do it for free. And again, we know that for a limited time, Amazon's not charging for that. They may at some point. I actually think it would make a lot of sense if they kept it free because it will encourage more people to use it. They get an increase in percentage of sales for that additional 15% increase that they typically see on the conversion rate. As far as video, you're not able to do video at the top unless you're selling Vendor Central or you have a specific business development rep. One of the companies I work with, again, we invite only, we were able to get that and they were able to add videos to us. That's a very specific situation and not open to a lot of sellers. But there is a company called AMZ Product Video, and we've got links on the resource page. In fact, we can send that out with the email when we send out the PowerPoint slides, that they have a system, they're former Amazon IT guys, and they basically have a contract with Amazon to provide exclusive content. So it's called Under Related Shorts, and it's above your product reviews. So it's not above the fold, but it does provide a way for you to add video to your detail page. And for one of the products we sell, we just put in the product features, scroll down to view our video. And then we link to that video in our Feedback Genius email when we welcome customers. So there is a little bit of opportunity to do video there. It's not at the top, it's near the bottom. But in summation, the migration trends that we've seen have been sellers going from Vendor Central to Seller Central. And the main deal breakers have been price control and inventory control. Nobody will care about your product like you do, and so you just have to keep that in mind. Even though both Vendor Central and Seller Central can use FBA, there is the element of there's a greater control of your product. And we had situations where they sent, we had customers and clients, specifically gourmet food companies, that sent in product to Vendor Central. It wasn't handled properly. It arrived to customers broken. It was damaged. And they weren't able to do damage control on that because they didn't have emails to customers. There was no way to contact them. And it just resulted in negative reviews. So that does tend to be a challenge. And I can say, going back to the brand registry and vendor central hierarchy, that if you're going from seller central to vendor central, which some sellers do, but very few, it's much easier because you just move from, tier 2 of detail page control to full detail page control. But we have had several sellers contact us and say, we're stuck on vendor central, help us get off. We want to get back into seller central where we retain pricing and retain control. The challenge is much greater because all the optimization has to be requested through vendor central. Even if you have brand registry, you can't override it. So as long as that listing is live, and you don't update the UPC codes or do new packaging that would create a new ASIN, all the changes have to be done through vendor central. So it's basically 10 times more of a nightmare to migrate from vendor central to seller central in that direction. But it can be done. We've worked with several sellers to do that successfully. So I do just want to give you a quick pitch for Marketplace Seller Courses. Like I said, we've created this course 2 years ago. It's a phenomenal resource. It's created off of everything I've learned in the last 6 years on Amazon, which is a lot. And the benefit is you have ongoing access. So once you sign up for the course, as long as the course is live on Amazon, as long as it's live online, you have access to all of the updates, all the information and videos, and we'll continue adding to that to make it more valuable. And as Amazon does updates, you can continue to do that and have the access to those resources. Everything from automating product and seller feedback. A lot of customers have questions about merging duplicates or stopping counterfeiters, copyright violation, keyword research, listing analysis. It's what do you do when you're stuck and you don't know what to do. Marketplace Seller Courses is a great resource to do that. And not only are all the videos and resources and links available online, but there's also a Q&A discussion question section there in the course that you can ask that question. So we'll send out the link in a minute, but if you go to marketplacesellercourses.com/webinar, that will take you to the package page. It gives you a $100 discount. That coupon code is good through Monday if you'd like to check it out. And again, as always, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so we know people will get great value out of it, enjoy it. So you can buy with full confidence knowing that if you have any issues, you don't feel like you get a full experience, you can just email us and we'll give you your full refund. So really helpful to use. If you're an Amazon seller, this is absolutely one of the best investments you can make to help you increase. So Lou, should we go over some of the Q&A that we had?
Yeah, just if we can. We just have a few more minutes left. Some really good questions. And the first one is, can we do both Seller Central and Vendor Central?
You can. I know a couple of sellers who have done that. Again, it really depends on balancing both of the tensions. So we've addressed all of the tensions and the pros and cons of both platforms. And so in certain cases, maybe if you have a handful of products that Vendor Central do really well on, where there's very little customer issues, or it's a pretty straightforward product, they're ordering large quantities, you're getting paid on time, it's good profit margin, but you also have other products that Amazon's not interested in purchasing from you directly at a wholesale price, you can use a Seller Central model to list those products and sell those products separately. It's all under your brand name. Obviously, Vendor Central will be shipped from and sold by Amazon, but for your products, you do have the ability to do that. Even if it's the same detail page, for example, like I mentioned in the sellout situation, if you have a product that's sold through Vendor Central can sell out, and you can list your inventory on that detail page through Seller Central and continue selling it. But obviously, if you're selling it and Amazon's selling it at the same price, they're going to win the buy box just because it's Amazon.
Shannon, Scott is asking, are there general times that companies go with Vendor Central versus Seller Central? Like maybe the first 2 years they use X, and then once established they use Y. Any thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think once you look at the pros and cons, you're going to decide which one is best for you. There's a lot of outsourcing that you can do for Seller Central. You can automate quite a bit. So things like sending in your inventory to FBA. When a product is fulfilled by Amazon, they can handle the customer service on that. You can opt in to handle customer service, but if you use strictly FBA model, you don't have to do any customer service. You can let Amazon do it. You don't have to necessarily contact customers or with Feedback Genius emails or that sort of thing. you can let it run on its own, but with pretty close to, if not better, profit margins for Seller Central. So I would say typically the best ideal situation is to pick the one that's best for you or right for you. And obviously at some point, if you feel like that changes based on the pros and cons, you could change it. But I've never seen a situation where it's like, okay, this size company does Seller Central, and then you get to this size, and then we do Vendor Central, because that's what the big boys do. We have companies that are committed to doing Seller Central, period, because simply they can't afford to have all the other platforms look at Amazon and say, hey, you're undercutting MAP, and now Bed Bath & Beyond and Walmart and all these other guys, they're saying, hey, we're dropping our prices too because Amazon's doing it. And they can't afford to have that kind of brand price war going on. So I would say the best ideal situation is pick one solution and stick with that one as long as you can.
Last question, Mark is asking, we're currently doing Vendor Central, but moving to a hybrid of doing both. And he says, my Amazon contact said that if Amazon retail is buying from us, that we can include the same ASINs in both vendor as well as seller. Mm-hmm. Do you know if this is the case or any way around?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And that's kind of the situation that I mentioned, where if you get into a sellout situation where Amazon's selling a product and you're selling that same product through Seller Central, but if they have inventory and they're selling at the same price, they're going to win the buy box. So it doesn't do you any good to list on that in Seller Central because you're not going to sell on it unless they run out, in which case you have the ability to win the buy box. But if you even if you're using FBA, your FBA inventory is just going to sit there until Amazon runs out of stock. And if they don't, then it's going to sit there indefinitely. So there's very few cases where that hybrid model would be necessary, but that's a good example. And absolutely you can do it. Once you create a detail page, you can list on it both in Vendor Central and Seller Central, and it's not an issue.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I hope that at some level we've shed some light on this issue with Seller Central and Vendor Central. We're available to talk with you guys anytime about your specific situation. Definitely email us, book a strategy call. There's no charge for that. Let us learn about what your specific goals are and how we might be able to help you. And then also to Shannon, Marketplace Seller Courses is an awesome resource for those that are looking to launch their products on Amazon. Like, what do we do? What's best for my brand? So if we can help you in any of those areas, then just please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for your time. We appreciate that, and good luck selling on Amazon.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I will go ahead and put the link in here for the webinar. So if you guys want to check that out, that should take you directly to the webinar with the coupon. But thank you guys again so much. And this video will be uploaded shortly, and then we'll go ahead and send out the PowerPoint. And you can feel free to reach out to us with any questions from there.